In lesson 3.9, we will be working on finding angles with algebra. We will be using algebra to find missing angles dealing with complementary angles and supplementary angles. So let's get started. It says you can find angles by solving equations. Then recall that it tells you complementary angles sum to 90 degrees. It tells us that angle ABD and angle DBC are complementary. So those two angles should add together to form 90 degrees. It also tells us that angle DBC measures 55 degrees. Then it asks, what is the measure of angle ABD? Well, I know that angle ABD and angle DBC should add to equal 90 degrees. So I can make the statement that angle DBC, which is 55, plus, we're going to call it N, which is the unknown measure for angle ABD, those two angles added together should equal 90 degrees. That is how we get our first equation. Now, to solve this equation, we will need to move the 55 over, which will leave the N by itself, which is what we want. So the first step is to subtract 55 from both sides, and we get N equals 35. So the measure of angle ABD is equal to 35 degrees. On the next section, it says that supplementary angles sum to 180 degrees. Angle WXZ and angle ZXY are supplementary, so those two angles should add to 180 degrees. It then tells us that angle WXZ measures 150 degrees. Then it asks, what is the measure of angle ZXY? So we know that the measure of angle WXZ is 150 degrees. And if we add the measure of ZXY, which we'll call it N, we should equal 180 degrees. So that is where we get our first equation. To solve this, we will need to get N by itself, which means we'll need to get rid of the 150. So we will subtract that from both sides. When we subtract it from both sides, we get N equals 30. So the measure of angle ZXY is equal to 30 degrees. Don't worry about the bottom section. We're not going to work on the word type problems for now. On the back side, it says first to find the complement of the following angles. So when it asks you to find the complement, you need to understand that the relationship is that the angles should be complementary, which means they should equal 90 degrees when you add them together. So go ahead and find the angle required to make the two angles add to 90 degrees for the following problems. On the next section, very similarly, it says to find the supplement. Remember, supplementary means they add to 180 degrees. So go ahead on this section and find the angle required to make the two angles add to 180 degrees. On the next section, it says to find the measure of these angles, and it gives you 3 angles. And it also reminds you that vertical angles are congruent, so you will have to use that information in combination with the information that's covered in this lesson. Once you have finished question number 5, you are finished with this lesson. Do not worry about questions 6 and 7.